Oh, there he is. There's John Orpheus. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another evening of Songs for a Blue Day. My name is Rob Carley. I'm one of the co-founders of the Awesome Music Project. And if you're just joining us for the first time with the Awesome Music Project, you can, please check out our page, theawesomemusicproject.com, to find out more information. But I'll just tell you in a nutshell, what we are is a Canadian charity that explores the healing power of music through sharing stories and songs, driving money towards research and to helping communities that need help, are most vulnerable. And during a pandemic, what we've been doing is we've been doing just little check-ins and chats. And tonight, I'm so excited to have this fellow. His name is Antonio Michael Downing. I know him as John Orpheus. And we'll get into why. There's the book right there. We'll get into maybe why this man wears so many hats. He's got a lot of talent. And, I got to know him as a musician, but lately I've been getting to know him as a writer and as a poet. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Antonio Michael Downing. Are you there, sir? Maybe he's not here yet. Check one. Well, we can talk about him while he gets to his mic. He's not there yet. It's okay. I just talked to him. I know he's here. He did have to go do an errand, so hopefully that wasn't going to take too long. Anyway, this book, the reason why I picked John Orpheus as our guest, a couple reasons. One, the guy's a great storyteller, and as you know, what we do at the Awesome Music Project is tell stories, and we try to bring connection through the power of music. John is also a musician, a really fantastic musician, and so even though some of his stories are about music, some of them are not, and they have a universal, I don't know, they just resonate. And his book takes you on a journey, from a wild journey, really, from Trinidad all the way to Northern Ontario, then through to Cambridge, up to Newmarket, to Long Island, then back to Toronto, and all the way. I mean, he's like I say, he wears a lot of different hats. And the book to me is really about a journey of self-discovery, because what I read in the book is a memoir of a 40-something-year-old guy who's had a lifetime of experiences that he's sort of stitching together into who he is. And it's a beautiful, beautiful read, and I recommend it highly. Again, it's called Saga Boy, and it's by Antonio Michael Downing, aka John Orpheus. So, John, are you there yet? It's okay, because I have a great idea. I want to tell everybody about what we're doing in May. May is World Mental Health Month, and what we have been doing since January, is we've been doing these sort of check-ins with different artists and musicians and storytellers. And in May, we're going to accelerate that frequency to be every week. And we've got a great lineup of guests. So I guess it's not, it's official, but it's not yet on social media, but I'll give you a secret of the lineup of who we're going to see. Great Canadian jazz, Juno Award-winning singer Kelly Lee Evans is going to join us on May the 3rd. May the 12th, we are going to do a special event with the Sarah McLachlan School of Music in Vancouver, which you'll find out more about. It's going to be really an interesting it's going to be a whole evening of stories and songs, and it's fascinating. Then the following week, Scott Hellman and Bob Egan are going to be our guests. Bob Egan, formerly of Blue Rodeo, he's in our book, The Awesome Music Project, Songs of Hope and Happiness, and his story is about his journey through recording with the Tragically Hip. And then Scott Hellman's going to join us and sing a song. And then we're going to finish off the month with Loud Luxury, an unbelievably successful electronic music dance, EDM, electronic dance music duo from London, Ontario, who are now just hitting it large in Los Angeles, and it's going to be really great to talk to them. But now that I see that John's back, so without further ado, I'd like to bring in the Saga Boy himself. This is his book, as I mentioned. His name is Antonio Michael Downing, aka John Orpheus. John, I lost him for a minute. You had me worried. I was like, what happened to him? Where'd he go? Did he reboot his computer or install an operating system in the last 2 minutes?
Perfect time to update Windows.
Yeah, it's like there's something about doing things live which I really like, and because well, you're a musician, playing live, anything can happen, and there's a certain exhilaration that you get from that. It's also fear, you might say, like anything can go wrong. Well, welcome to our Songs for the Blue Day, and I was just telling our audience that, as a charity, as you know, we explore the healing power of music, and you've been playing music. Well, you haven't been playing all your life, but music has been a big part of your life since you were a kid, and I want to get into that a little bit. But first, what's it like? I mean, the last 5 or 6 months for you must be a bit surreal, because it seems to me. You know a lot of people, they know you a little bit, and suddenly you now have written a testament on your life, really. You've written, your whole life story out. You've laid it all out in a very raw, honest way. And what's that experience like?
It's still happening, so it's hard for me to characterize it. But it's extremely humbling. It's extremely interesting, because I think, as artists, I think we create things so that we can, well, I do anyway. I make things so that, because from the inside, it's hard to understand them. So then I put this thing in my head into a thing that I can hold up, and people's reaction to it is what helps me understand it. So in a way, it's been, the reaction to the book is part of me sort of going, hey, I've told this story, but I'm just figuring out what it means. And what I'm hearing from people is just, generally people are, the things that I really enjoy about it is that people are, when it makes people think about their stories and their family and their relationships. And like, to me, that's the real magic about it. It's also sort of a whirlwind of sort of press and events. And of course, it's all online. It's all virtual, but
no first class tickets for you. No first class airfare for you, I guess.
Yeah, no. But because it's virtual, there's more of it, because I couldn't be in Calgary, Vancouver, and Halifax in the same day, but now I can.
Now you can. Change your shirt, no one will know.
yeah, if they're lucky.
There's so many beautiful pieces in the book and quotes, and I jotted a few things down that really struck with me. I remember when you said, when the wheels came off your life, music was the refuge that I ran to. And I thought that was it speaks so much to what we do at the Awesome Music Project, and that is to underscore the power of music to really be something that can be a cathartic constant in your life.
Right.
So speak a little bit about that. I mean, I know that you've been a musician professionally, but there's been a lot of art in your life as well. And those two things, I don't know if they've defined you, but they've played a pretty big role, right?
Yeah. And for me, it always goes back to my grandmother, because, and I know you've read the book, so you know the scene. It's like, here I am, I'm this kid. I'm in the rainforest of southern Trinidad. So even people from Trinidad is like, where? It's like the bush. And it's just me and my grandmother and my brother. And I'm kind of clinging to her because she's my whole world. She's my everything. And she's this remarkable person, remarkably generous, remarkably kind, remarkably loving. And she taught me a lot of lessons, but the two core ones had to do with reading and writing, and a love of language and poetry in particular, because she loved to read her Bible. And at 82 or 3, her eyes were bad, so she couldn't read. And so she taught me to read so I could be her eyes. And it's like these very poetic parts of the Bible, like Psalms, which literally translates into songs, the songs of David. That's what she loved to read the most. So I learned to read by reading lyrics, basically some of the
Right.
oldest lyrics in the world. Um, and then secondly, songs themselves, like she was always singing. And I didn't know it at the time, but if you can imagine, it's a British colony, right? And not like we're a British colony, but the Queen is just on the money. We never see her.
Yeah.
Trinidad, up until I was born, was pretty much just a property of the Queen. Like there was no votes, there was no parliament, no representation, no agency. So it's
Right.
a tough life, especially for the dark skinned people who don't have, poor people on the island. And so she lived through that, and her way of turning, but she was always generous and loving, even though she had this difficult sort of way to go. And what I realized after the fact was that her engagement with language and with music was how she made it through. She would
Right.
sing so that she could not only uplift herself, but uplift everyone around her. And that's where my love of singing came from. And I mean, to this day, I'm a musician and a writer. So, like, that's how important that was to me being me.
Yeah. There's some beautiful, like I said, there's so many beautiful passages. And I had mentioned it to you in an email. Maybe there's a few you want to read. I'm going to let you, if you'd like.
Yeah.
You can do so many things. You can sing, read, you could dance right now. I'm going to let you pick your weapon of choice. And, let us get to know a little bit more about Antonio Michael Downing.
Yeah, okay. I won't dance, I promise. Well, you know what? Just because, and I know we talked about a few passages, but I'm going to read this one just because it's directly related to my grandmother and her love of singing and song and
Great.
how that impacted me. So, this is from the first chapter. On a day like that, it would have been normal to hear the sound of Miss Exley's voice drifting over the tombstones. There was a cemetery on either side of the street, and ours was the first house after the one on the left. Her voice would catch me as soon as I left the junction, drifting like a breeze. My grandma, we called her Mama, and everyone else called her Miss Exley, was always singing. When she woke up with the Kiskadis, when she was happy and smiling, when she was thoughtful and laughing to herself, or when she went to bed, the bullfrogs as her backup, she sang hymns mostly about Jesus and salvation and redemption and power. So basically, every single song in the Anglican hymnal, power in the blood, how great thou art, rock of ages, abide with me. And the draggy one that was her favorite, stars in my crown, which I didn't really understand then, except I knew it had something to do with getting stars in my crown when at evening the sun goeth down in the mansions of rest. What I did know was that her bright eyes and soft face got very strange when she sang this hymn. She would smile with her whole face, but have tears in her eyes. Was it possible to be sad and happy at once? In those moments, coming home from school, the world seemed dim and out of focus. Everything hushed. Her voice perfumed the very air. The tall grass across the cemetery leaned in slow motion. Beads of sweat slid down my forehead and tickled my neck. All of creation became her voice calling me home.
Nice work.
It's heavy.
Heavy. It's so heavy. I mean, she appears at the beginning of the book, and she's mentioned right at the end of the book. I mean, she's like a constant character that I suppose you carry with you even now.
She's right here now. She's right here now.
It's beautiful. You mentioned the songs, and these are are, some of these are well-known hymns that even I know.
Yeah, classics.
They're
Classic.
classic. They're from they're not Anglican Church. I guess they are Anglican Church
In
hymns.
dance hall, you would call them big tune.
Yeah, the big the standards. Play some standards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll leave it to you. Do you want to sing any of this stuff, or do you want to?
Yeah, I'll give you that one that I'm thinking of it just because I just read the part "Stars in My Crown." That was her favorite. And my Aunt Joan, who's also a character in the book, I just talked to her yesterday, and she's amazing because she, like, this talking to her is like 30%. Well, I won't even put it in percent. She'll quote a scripture. She'll preach on it a little bit. She'll sing a couple hymns. She'll tell a story about her grandmother, my grandmother, her mother.
Yeah.
And then she'll repeat, and then she'll work in some nutritional advice in there somewhere. But it's like that's how she speaks. That's
a
just
normal conversation. That's how she's trying to ask you something. It's like,
yeah, that's how it is. So she said when Mama she said, boy, I remember Miss Exley on that porch in Trinidad in Monkey Town is the name of our street, and she said she would get a look in her eye, and I'd say, Mama, what are you thinking about? And she'd say, girl, I'm thinking of my dying days, which is like this morbid thing. But then you think, she's an old lady. So to her, there was a beautiful space she came into where she forgot all her cares and really focused on what was beautiful about being alive. And so she would sing the song. It would go, me, will there be any stars in my crown? When at evening the sun goeth down, and though I lay myself in the mansion of rest, will there be any stars in my crown? Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff. The last time I heard you sing, actually, I think was in this studio. Remember you came over here and you did a big rap for me? I had totally forgot until today. I just thought, wait a minute, there's that thing that
I just remember
Mike
that
came over and did.
I just remember that right now. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I had totally forgotten until today, and I was thinking, oh, I'm going to see Mike D tonight, and we're going to chat. And I'm like,
we're going to chat.
I feel like it's something like we did something recently, and I just, you forget things so much. It's something that you do very well is you catalog things and you write them down. And I was heart-wrenching in your book when I read about the 17 journals you lost to a fire.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm glad some of them stuck around, but obviously your memory is great too, because you seem to create this amazing journey. You were able to document it, and it's beautiful, And
I think that was partially from, when again, learning by reading the Bible is just a bunch of stories, whether you believe or you don't believe, it's just a bunch of stories. And so that way of giving things significance by telling them as a story, that's kind of something that I always kind of do. Like, if you can imagine, and it happens in the book. So like at 11, my grandmother dies.
Yeah.
And every single thing I knew about the world, gone. Like, imagine, I mean, most of us, we can go back to our hometown. We can drive down the street, go to the school that we went to. We have friends from that period. But for me, all of that was gone. And so I always would tell a lot of the stories that ended up in the book because they were all I had left of my childhood. So I held on to them in this really precious way. And as I created new memories, I tended to do the same thing, which is why I journal. So I've lost, a lot of those journals, but I have more. I've written more, and I'm creating more. So it's just a habit I developed, which I thought was a weird tick of mine, but as it turns out, it's useful for writing memoirs. So,
well, I mean, it's a powerful tool. I mean, the power of storytelling is amazing because, like music, there are universal themes when you tell stories that everyone can identify with to some extent. Obviously, your story is very specific, and I can't imagine what it's like to lead your life, especially after reading the book. It's just so fantastic, really. But there are certain themes like, the idea of loneliness. I mean, you have a great line in your book. It's very sad and heart-wrenching, but when you say, alone is something we both knew how to do. You ended a chapter with
Yeah.
that line. And
Yeah.
I was just like, it kind of floored me. I'm like, yeah, I've had a lot of practice of being alone, just being, basically orphaned at 11 and then going to a whole new country. And, for those who haven't read the book, you end up, it sounds like the town is sort of between Dryden and Thunder Bay where you first started. It's like,
Yeah, it's actually it's the last town before Dryden if you're going west.
yeah, it sounds pretty remote. Anyway, I'm like, that might have been something. But that idea of being the outsider too is another theme that I think resonates with a lot of people, especially right now, during a pandemic and during a time when we're often, in some ways we're connected, but we're all very alone. And this idea of being on the outside looking in and feeling a bit helpless, that theme to me is very powerful. And it's something that, a lot of the stories in the Awesome Music Project have that kind of thread where it's about that feeling of being, outside looking in. And you're a guy who spent your high school years at a new high school every year. So that idea of being the new kid and as we reach out to more and more youth with our messages, it's like, I know there's a lot of people who are younger than me, that's for sure, who are going through a lot of, who go through those struggles and difficulty. And I feel like, if there's a way to connect with that, it's through storytelling and through your book or through songs. It's just a really great
through
way
music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Rob, there's a fundamental experience of being human where we're all alone in our heads. And no matter what we do, no one, or how close we are with someone, you're in your head. It's just you in there, and no one's looking out with your eyes. And you can build these structures of connection to people, but the feeling of being alone and kind of separate is kind of defining of the human condition. And and I think you said it right. Like, music and storytelling are the two most fundamentally powerful ways we use to bridge that gap, to bridge that loneliness, to communicate. And that's why, like, I latched on to music as a kid, because it was kind of like, well, how else are you going to bridge this gap? Otherwise, you're just kind of there, and there's so much going on, and we all just long to, if you could just connect with one person, then it's almost like you can connect with the whole world, because connection becomes a possibility.
Yeah. It's also a great way to connect with your own past. I mean, you mentioned this as well in the book, the idea that music is what was the word you used? Teleportation device. And I've often said time machine, but the idea that your past is something that it's something it's there. And oftentimes through music, we can almost be in that place in time. And it's so much, it has that transformative quality to take us to a different place in time.
Absolutely. And for me, that was essential, because very often I felt alone. I felt sad. I felt confused about, how to make my way through life, which is a common thing for most people. But I think, as you know in the book, a lot of times in my life, I felt like I was on my own doing it. And that became, and that's immense, looking back on it. But music would kind of take me out of that. It would take me to a place where it was like, the same place my grandmother went when she was singing those hymns, right? It would take her to a place of peace and tranquility where you always belonged, and where you felt like you could commune with something greater than yourself. And so that's how I've always felt with music. And it never stops. I think that's why it's so powerful, is because it can transport us, and in so doing, it allows us to connect and see our world differently, and that's so powerful.
In a minute or two, I'm going to get you to transport us and take us to a different place with some of your own music. I'm going to get you to sing.
I'll try.
But before I do that, I have one more question for you. But I also want you to mention the book. I mean, I think people should, if you're looking for something to read, this is it. Like, we each have our copy. Look, I had a lot of things to ask you tonight. Like, I have it. And so we're going to have another conversation maybe tomorrow. I don't want to don't want to commandeer the whole night with my questions, but
Yeah.
congratulations on a very successful book and on the whirlwind that you're going through right now. It's awesome to watch your star rise and to just to read the story and to just invite us into your narrative. It's just really a great treasure. So thank you for writing the book, and thank you for appearing today on this little broadcast.
Thank you, Rob. And I'm gonna tell this story because as we're talking about storytelling and holding on to stories that give us life, your
Oh,
Rob gave me an incredible moment where we were playing with Danny Michelle's band, and it was an illustrious band. One guy had opened for Paul Simon, and different people in the band were very.
all-star cast. It was an all-star cast.
It was an all-star cast, and I was kind of sitting. I was like, Rob, I kind of feel like I don't belong here, And Rob said to me, he said, well, hey man, if everyone's awesome and you're here, maybe you're awesome too. Maybe you're in the right place. And that always stuck with me as a story as a gem that I polished. And anytime I ever since then felt like an imposter, I pulled that out. And this whole journey with the book has frequently put me in spaces where it's like, whoa, these people are illustrious. I don't know what I'm doing here. Like Perdita Felacion, whose book My Mother's Daughter just came out. We're on the same publisher, and she, of course, is like, I don't know, the 10-time Canadian sprinting champion and Olympian. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. What am I doing here? And I thought about you and I was like, okay, maybe I'm awesome too. I don't know how, but maybe.
Well, we all have a little bit of that imposter syndrome in us at some point. We all do. It's just, and it's because I think it goes back to what you said before, but we're all in our own head a little bit, like we're kind of alone. And then it's like,
Yeah.
that is a beautiful reminder to just the essence of humanity, that we have to reach out and make those connections. And
Yeah.
we never know what's going to come of them. And it's just really, really lovely. My question was to deal with, when you read the book and you look at your journey, which is, like I said before, there's some heartbreaking moments in it. You're such a positive guy. You've been dealt some rougher cards than some people, but
Yeah.
I was curious to know, like, where does this positivity come from? Because it's a lesson to all of us, to watch you and to learn from you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, necessity in a word. I mean, I think it's like, well, we gotta
Has there been your grandmother there? I mean, it sounds like she was always a very
yeah.
positive person.
Oh, absolutely. Because my grandmother, you would think that life that she lived would be not something anyone would wish for, and you'd be right to be bitter or be miserable about it. But she was the opposite. She was joyful, she was kind, she was generous. She raised like all kinds of orphan kids, not just me and my brother, but all kinds of other, like, she was just such an incredible example. And really, she gifted me with the tools to turn, like an alchemist, to turn lead into gold.
Yeah.
That's what music was for her, and that's what the stories in the Bible and those stories and that storytelling was for her. And when I remember when I finally got around to getting therapy, which should have happened sooner. And I talked to a therapist and he said something similar. It's like, whoa, like you should be in a way worse state. And then when he heard the details of the story, he said, like, two of the main forms of therapy we use are writing, like journaling therapy, and music.
Yeah.
And all he could say was that almost certainly my life in creativity and in the arts allowed me to process a lot of the difficulty and turn it into, if you can turn what's difficult into something beautiful, then actually the difficulty just becomes, the harder it is, the higher the mountain, it just becomes a measure of how high you can climb, because if you can just create something of beauty, then the struggle has meaning, and meaning is what we're all searching for. And so I think that's really what it's about, is that my grandmother gave me the tools that she used,
Yeah.
which because we're at the Awesome Music Project, it is appropriate, because it's music and storytelling. That's what she used to, no matter how difficult it was, still come out full of grace. And in fact, the more difficult it was, the more grace she had to get used to having. And I think I've kind of come through doing the same thing. And so, and it hasn't always been this way, but I think, I'm thankful for the path and for the healing. And I'm really, really privileged that I'm in a position to now take that and make something that might help someone else's path be a little easier. And that's with music and with the book.
Well, that's a beautiful thing to say, and a beautiful gift you're giving us. So thank you, Antonio Michael Downing, for being with us tonight. And I think we should end with a song. I'm not gonna say anything after the song. I think this is our goodbye for now. Yeah, at the end you'll see. Do tune in on May 3rd is our next event. It's a Monday night, and we're going to feature Juno Award-winning jazz singer Kelly Lee Evans from Ottawa, who got hit by lightning. She got hit by lightning. It's a great story.
What?
Yeah. Do you know Kelly Lee Evans? She's fantastic, and her story is in our book. And tune in to hear a fascinating tale about recovery and music and healing. Why don't you introduce this song? Thank you again, John Orpheus, for being with us. And I'll say goodbye, and I'll see you. I'm going to call you probably tomorrow to ask more questions.
Yeah. We need a. What do we do these days? A video hang? Yeah. Oh my goodness.
All right.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you, Rob, and thank you for just bringing me into this beautiful thing that you're doing here. Yeah, it's gorgeous, and it's certainly close to my heart. The power of music to help make the world better. So thank you. This song is called Fella Woke. Fella being Fela Kuti. It's really about celebrating our heroes, but letting them go so that we can be heroes to others. It's also a song about my grandmother and her impact on my life. But I'm gonna just play it, and we'll see how it goes. From my heart to yours. Oh na na. Oh na 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 na. Na na na. Yeah. Fella woke on the day they killed his mother. Told her heart had guided him like no other. The soldiers came with their boots and their guns, while the children played in the yard one by one. They threw her body from a window, and her soul took flight. They broke fella's face, broke fella's arm, but broke his heart with that sight. Mama, I'ma miss you, and your oceans of smiles. I will miss you, and the sun's in your eyes. Mama, I'ma miss you, like the rain missed the plains. I will miss you until I see you again. Hey, they're telling Bob Marley I woke on the day that he left. He said, well, I've got to go now, but still I feel so blessed. I spent a lot of days with my woman and with my cess, yes, with my six-string justice chanting down Babylon in the west. Oh yeah, I will miss you, and your oceans of smiles. I will miss you, hey, and the sun's in your eyes. Mama, I'ma miss you, like the rain missed the plains. I will miss you until I see you again. There are many things you can take from me. I've been traveling so very long, trying to find some place that feels like home. There are many things you can take from me, but what you can't take away is the love that is found in our sweet destiny. Na 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 na. Yeah. Yeah, I woke the day grandmama had her stroke, and I cried and I cried until the tears stopped my throat. You see, she was the gardener and I was the soil. She said, boy, you got a long road full of love but full of toil. Oh yeah, I will miss you. And your oceans of smiles, I will miss you. And the sun's in your eyes, mama, I will miss you. Like the rain missed the plains, I will miss you until I see you again. Yeah, you know, my people come from West Africa, and there's a Yoruba word. It means I will find my way home. It says the word is Madele. There you go. Madele, 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 Madele. Madele, 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 Madele. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Madele, 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 Madele. Ooh. Madele, 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 Madele. Oh yeah, I will miss you.